Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Stephen Ranzano, and I'm an assistant professor of English at American University, Phnom Penh. I want to read to you my reflective editorial about being for or against COVID-19 vaccination. It's also an assignment I gave to my students today in English Enrichment 101. I told them I wanted to have them think about an argument for and against something. So I gave them articles from the WHO, from the CDC, from other medical organizations to look at the vaccination and why they should take the vaccination. I also gave them some websites from other doctors, other forums that I've read and looked at that talk about not taking the vaccination for certain reasons. So I want them to look at things and figure out on their own what they really believe, what they think, and just to reflect on the things that they know to be good, true, for themselves. I don't want to influence them in any way, but my editorial is called To Be or Not to Be. That is the question. So here it goes. The nightmare of COVID-19 began somewhere in Wuhan, China, even before I set foot aboard my United flight on December 24th, 2019 from Fresno Air Terminal. We know it as FAT, F-A-T, or Fresno Yosemite International Airport. Anyway, from there I flew to San Francisco and boarded my China Eastern flight with a business class ticket. Thanks Kim Dowd for helping me to upgrade, and which took me through Shanghai, Nanning, China, and then on my way to Phnom Penh. I arrived in Phnom Penh on December 26, 2019, having spent Christmas Day somewhere in the air, in business class, over southern China. On January 6, 2020, I started my new job as a secondary principal in a large international school in Tul Tompong, Phnom Penh. By this time, the virus was already waging war in Wuhan and working its way out of China toward the rest of the world. Over the next 2 months, I would watch from the outside with the BBC, Skynet, ABC Australia, and CNA News about the virus and how it was spreading. Italy and Spain, for whatever reason, seemed to be the worst countries affected first outside of China. On Friday, March 13th, 2020, was our last day of what we had come to know as face-to-face instruction. The war had begun in Southeast Asia. We all quickly became aware of news from friends working in schools in Vietnam, Thailand, and Myanmar that had closed. Then all schools in Cambodia were ordered to close over the Friday the 13th weekend because of the edict issued from the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Sports. Fears, speculations, and the plans to fight this virus from land and sea from each country had begun. In our darkest hour, to steal a little bit of Winston Churchill's thunder, we have had to overcome great odds to emerge stronger. A little wary, but confident that we can continue our battle with COVID-19 shutdowns and emerge as victors. Our biggest hurdle was to convince all the stakeholders that the quality of educating children would not suffer, but become more creative and productive as we continued our fight. In the words of Winston Churchill, we have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I will say, it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might, with all our strength that God can give us. To wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalog of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. It is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be. From Presidential Medical Advisor Fauci, WHO, and not the band WHO, and the CDC, we were being told weekly that help was on the way and vaccines were in the works to stop this pandemic in its tracks. The US, England, China, and Russia were all working on vaccinations at the same time to develop a wonder vaccine to protect people from the COVID and build up what they were calling herd immunity. Flashback, 1992 in Clovis High School, my alma mater, and the first secondary school I ever taught English at. During our orientation week, we would all get together in the band room to hear from different admin about the year, new policies, be introduced to new staff, and any other changes. And then there would be, the jokes from Gary Ennis and Dan Eberly. That would be kind of fun. Then there was the pep talk from the school nurse, Miss Nancy Bush. Her time was always appreciated by all of us, and her words were always straight and to the point. Not like a Carlo Prandini story moment, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, we all knew what she would say. Okay, staff, you know the drill by now. You all get your medical supplies after this meeting today. This usually consisted of a medium-sized plastic bag with safety pins, Band-Aids, alcohol swabs, and some disposable rubber gloves. Remember, if it's wet and it's not yours, and we would all respond back to Nurse Bush like a responsorial in a Catholic Mass, don't touch it! So during this time, inevitably, someone would ask Nurse Bush too about the flu vaccination for the year. Should we get it to protect ourselves against the flu? Nurse Bush, always being thoughtful, she would say, well, if you're really young or really old, I would advise you to get the vaccination. In 1995, at the age of 35, I decided to get the flu vaccination because there was a nasty strain going around. The day after I got the vaccination, I became feverish and sick, and this continued for almost a week. I sort of wished I had remembered Nurse Bush's advice that year, and that was almost the same year, I believe, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which may have certainly compromised my immune system. As I listened to the debates with the COVID-19 vaccinations and complications, reactions, and some deaths, I have become cautious and wary. I have type 2 diabetes as a 59-year-old now, and I am aware that I would be advised by some not to take a vaccine, the Sinovac or the AstraZeneca vaccination, if I am a diabetic. A 60-year-old monk who had diabetes in Thailand took the AstraZeneca vaccination in April 2021, about a week and a half ago at his monastery. A day later, he died of cardiac arrest. 3 other monks of the 120 who took the vaccination had adverse reactions as well, but only the 60-year-old monk with diabetes died. Right now, a few Southeast Asian countries, Thailand and the Philippines, as well as some European countries, again, are urging caution and reconsidering their actions and advice specifically with the AstraZeneca vaccination. I have also been taking ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, which have both been used for 2 or more decades to fight different parasites and ailments here in Southeast Asia. I started to take ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine in December of 2020 because of the advice of a medical staffer that was retired here from Australia. His name was John. He told me that both medications were safe and effective to use to fight the COVID. John also said that they were readily available at neighborhood pharmacies here in Cambodia and relatively cheap. $2 for 2 ivermectin and $18 for 24 hydroxychloroquine. John has since moved to Kampot, another city near the Gulf of Thailand, so I have no way of reaching out to him and asking him if he's going to get the vaccination, and he wasn't one to stay contacted on social media or give people his phone number. So I would really like to know, though, from him what he's going to do. He was a little bit older than me, in his 60s, probably early 60s. However, conspiracy theories aside, I have always been an independent thinker, and I'm cautious. Besides, I just do not wish to do something and take something that has just been created, is experimental in every way, and only 60 to 90% effective for everyone who takes it. Now, studies are saying you can still get the COVID even if you are vaccinated. And there's been some news stories lately on TV, the BBC, Skynet News, CNA talked about it today, that some people who were vaccinated, first time they were vaccinated, and there were some people in Thailand who contracted COVID. I still think about the side effects that could come later too, and that has happened. News has reported that as well. I was always taught to err on the side of caution, and maybe this is a God thing for me, but today as I was watching The Princess Diaries, yeah, I know, Dan Everly, yeah, men don't watch those things, but I do, and it's not even Christmas. So I was watching it on the Macau Lotus Channel 78 on cable, and a quote at the end of the film jumped out at me in the last part of the film where the princess was kind of debating, should I or shouldn't I? Should I be the princess or shouldn't I? And in a man's voice, and it sounded like the voice of her dead father, it says, the cautious do not live at all. Well, being who I am, I had to find out who said this originally and what the context was to life and living. The original quote is from Meg Cabot, and Cabot actually said, the brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all. Now, I thought about this, and I would rather be brave at this point in my life and do what I think is best. I will continue to take the ivermectin and the hydroxychloroquine, which, now suddenly is safe to take after President Trump was vilified for saying publicly he was taking hydroxychloroquine. And is it any coincidence that the largest hydroxychloroquine production plant in India was destroyed by a mysterious fire last year? No vaccination for me at this time. And I'm going to leave you with one last thought. A saying from my favorite Hallmark greeting card I would buy at the Dollar Tree in Clovis on Cedar and Herndon near People's Church. I would buy this for my friends a lot. The card said this. It's simple and could be true. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. This has been Dr. Stephen Ronzano, live from Phnom Penh, Don Pen Riverside, Cambodia. And as my friend Brent would say, peace out.